Hello, Earl Grey Anderson. I'm just trying out this new Chrome plugin. Hello, Earl Grey Anderson. Hello, Earl Grey Anderson.
So here we got Earl Grey Anderson, and first of all we'll probably start with introduction about who you are and your hobbies and what you work for, and so people can understand who you are and whether you can be trusted or not on the interview. So a lot of people out there are skeptical of, especially UFO people that have all these outrageous stories. So I'll leave it to you to explain a wee bit about yourself.
Sure, Paul. I'm skeptical as well. I mean, that's kind of what I do, as in my job for MUFON. I'm chief investigator in Los Angeles, and we do have the largest number of UFO reports, not only in the country of North America, but in the entire world. Now, some of that is probably because we're crazy California here, of course. And yeah, that probably plays into it some, and I get some contactees with some wild stories that sound like comic book stuff, But we also have some major military bases around here. We have Vandenberg, we have Edwards, over the mountains, we have Area 51. We have the whole coast of California, and there are a lot of sightings there. And while some people may have seen a drone or a weather balloon or perhaps a Chinese lantern release, there are some UFOs that we can't explain. And as a MUFON investigator, we have two different categories for an actual UFO. One is an unknown / other. That would include orbs, balls of energy, what have you. Mm-hmm. It would be like an entity report would be, an unknown other. And we get entity reports, some that are very valid. And I do get those, and I respect them very much. There's evidence, and I'm a stickler for evidence. I want multiple witnesses. I want more than just a story.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I come from.
I can understand that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have the unknown aerial vehicle, which is your craft.
Yeah.
And we do have valid craft sightings out here.
Mm-hmm.
We had a good one out in Azusa, California. Azusa is USA, A to Z. They named the town that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's next to a large mountain range. There's a couple of military bases nearby. There's a torpedo range in the middle of the mountain range there. And we recently had a huge sighting. It was seen not only by... we received 2 reports of the same of the exact same sighting. Mm-hmm. 2 women that took chase after a UFO.
Yeah.
Close encounters of the first, of the third kind, right?
Yeah.
Very, very Spielberg-esque, but
there
was. We couldn't get the trace evidence because the guy that owned the property that the flying saucer hovered over was a Christian fundamentalist, and
right.
it went against his religion, so he threw us off the property as if we were, Jehovah's Witnesses or something.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with Christians. Half of them don't believe, they think they're angels or devil, and half of them actually believe they're actually aliens from another planet.
Most of them don't go that far, but then there was another ex-military guy who had a sighting. He watched the exact same thing from a distance. He was about 20 miles away.
Yeah.
And he described the exact same sighting that the 2 women that took chase after the UFO described. So it was a well-founded case. It had multiple witnesses. It was actually 2 cases that we bundled together. And BuzzFeed actually went and did an article on it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. It's always good if it makes media, it gets more attention.
Sure.
So, you also do models and other things. You're a musician.
Yeah, I'm a guitar player. I'm a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that all my life. Well, since I was 12 years old. That's when I started that.
Hopefully we'll be able to put some on the episode that I'm going to create with this interview, so people can have a listen.
Fantastic, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would appreciate that.
Yep.
You know. and then I'm also a nurse. I'm a working nurse. I take care of mostly special needs children at this point in my life.
Right.
And I'm nearly 60 years old. I turned 60 on May 29th.
Oh, you're a wee bit older than I.
A wee bit.
Yeah, by about 9 years.
60 is the new 100, you know.
Mind you, I found my life growing up were the best years. You know, the 60s and 70s were the best times.
Yeah, well, I was here for the 60s and the 70s, and they were fun, you know.
Yeah, we grew up with the Beatles, so...
The Beatles were amazing, and that's kind of my whole gist as far as music goes. Everything you have to compare with John Lennon. Nothing compares with John Lennon.
I know, just think what he could have done if he lived a bit longer.
Yeah.
I think
John Lennon saw a UFO.
Yeah, he did, yeah, in New York, wasn't it?
Yes.
In a high rise.
It was a flying saucer.
Mm.
Other people saw it too.
Yeah, but most of those were on the smoking stuff, the weed.
Yeah.
So that always puts people off, you know, thinking where they're just hallucinating.
I don't know. You don't really hallucinate on marijuana, you know. But
well, he was doing other stuff, but
he did enjoy quite a few different.
But I like the guy myself, and
me too.
They had good lyrics and melodies, and Sgt. Pepper's probably one of the most famous albums there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All the psychedelic period stuff, it was flowery, it was beautiful.
Yeah, they had the Indian sitar in it, which was quite a crazy
Certainly.
sound. But if you listen to it, it sort of makes you... you could actually feel them LSD in on it. It's almost like the music's LSD, and you listen to it in the darkness of night, and you actually can feel yourself just drifting and thinking about space. Well, I do anyway when I listen to it.
My uncle gave me a copy of Sgt. Pepper, and then he gave me a copy of Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah.
The American version was an LP, and it had Strawberry Fields and
all the good ones.
Penny Lane and Blue Jay Way was on the British release too, but it was very, very seminal for me musically and philosophically it was very seminal for me.
Yeah.
That was kind of what
if you think about before the Beatles come along, all they were playing was like jazz and classical music back in those days. They sort of revolutionized everything.
Sure, just bashing away on guitars with a drum, Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
They were called the Devil's Music at one stage, but now we've got, what is it, metal music, and what's the other stuff, what do they call it, death metal or whatever it's called.
Oh, I never really got into that.
No, that's not my liking at all. But I like
rock a lot.
Yeah, I like
jazz and ELP and all that stuff is fun.
Yeah, I like a varied music. Depends what my mood is. If I want to relax, then I'll find the appropriate music for it. Now, we used to listen to Pan Floop's music over Christmas. Everyone gets filled up on Christmas turkey or whatever and just lays on the floor listening to the Pan Flutes and drift off into La La Land on full bellies. But so I suppose we should move on to your famous story of your mother, I guess, and as we'll be talking all night long about music and stuff. But,
sure, we can talk about a lot of stuff, cabbages and kings.
But you do model making. Do you still do that before we move on?
I do it. when I have time, it's been a while. You know, I'm so busy with my cases, you know, through MUFON. I mean, I usually have 30 cases at a time that I'm working on.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a very busy field investigator. I am the chief field investigator for MUFON in California. And you know, Jeff Krause, my boss, he does hand me a lot of the more interesting cases. Sometimes it's nothing more than the moon through clouds. And other times it's, you know, I mean, other times it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, you've seen most of my debunks on stuff, and I'm trying to educate people how to, you know, look at their own footage before submitting it to MUFON, but it's hard to get people... Hard to get people to look at things truthfully and with a out of the mind box, you know, look at from a fresh perspective. You know, sometimes we see a light go in the sky, and now I think, oh, could it be a satellite? Could it be a plane high up? Or could it be a meteorite or something like that? And I sort of eliminate things before I say, oh, it's got to be a UFO. But a lot of these other channels online, they just put anything up and say it's a UFO, and people just get stuck along with it. And really, I'm trying to do something different on YouTube where people can see what it really is, or whether it's a real UFO or not. As you know, I've got one Skywatcher's video case up, but everyone doubts him because he won't give off his location, which is normally a red flag. But when I analysed the video, you can see it's not VGI. He's filming through grass, and you can listen to the sound in the headphones, and you can hear him sitting in the old fold-up chair, and he's just sitting there with the camcorder recording the UFO over the lake.
Yeah.
And
the hoaxes aren't all that hard to figure out.
Yeah, but that one wasn't a hoax, I don't think, because I couldn't figure out how he did it, unless he's working for a movie FX company, and he's that specialised. But I don't think so, because if you ever look at
there's some very, very, very valid UFO sightings.
Yeah.
Of course, we've had the little Pentagon, the Pentagon drop recently from the To the Stars Academy thing that Tom DeLonge's been doing.
It's a shame though that those videos aren't better, or the full clip, and
I know they're made for the public, obviously.
But it's something that
it's something.
Yeah,
it's something official.
And
that's heartening.
But there's a few debunkers out there sort of slamming it and laughing at it all the time, rather than
I'm not slamming it, really. I'm not slamming it.
No, I'm talking about other debunkers or skeptics out there. And of course you've got Secure Team 10 that's also sort of mocking DeLonge all the time.
Sure, but we all know that Secure Team is CGI, and that they're a fake organization. That Tyler is very, very rich because he gets all these hits, because of his commercials that are on his, YouTube channel, and he's done very well for himself through it, unfortunately, for those of us that
I've proven beyond doubt. Yeah, I've proven beyond doubt that he's created hoaxes from the start of his channel. But I understood that once he used to call his channel Entertainment and made out that it was actually faked in the first place, but people actually believed it. But like these other channels like Section 51, where they do CGI, so he found more people were interested in it and relabeled his site. From what I understood, because it was before my time when I looked into the YouTube channels, I heard it from what's his name on Open Minds.
From Alejandro.
Yeah, that's him. Yep, and he made a comment on one of the Open Minds radio that they used to be called Entertainment only, which would have been fine for his channel because it is entertainment if people don't want to take it seriously. But unfortunately, a lot of people believe everything he puts up.
Oh, they do. There are people, there are people that believe that everything that's on the internet and everything that's on television is true, and that's not true.
Yeah.
I believe in the 5%. Yes. The 5% thing that J. Allen Hynek, the great ufologist, That was his whole gist of investigations.
Yeah.
What he found was 5% of what you see is true.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is BS.
Yeah. I thought it was actually 20% or 18%. I think I did a chart where
I think they whittle it down to about 5 eventually, or at least.
I know
that's kind of what I've whittled it down.
Stanton Friedman, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Stanton. He just retired.
Well, so he says now, but he'll still end up going to UFO conventions, no doubt.
Sure.
But he's actually
a very nice man.
Yeah, he might not speak. He might not speak or anything.
Yeah.
So that's all right.
He's probably done writing books and stuff, and going on the lecture circuit, which is a task for somebody.
Maybe he's been given the word.
I don't know.
They're going to hit him.
So.
Men in Black have got to him.
Yeah, there you go. The Greys.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, we're supposed to talk about your mother now and get that story done with, in case something goes wrong with the recording.
Absolutely.
So,
it's been fun so far. We talk all the time on the internet.
Yeah.
Talking.
Well, this is normally this is my first interview and test run, really. So I'm not sure how it's going. Yeah, we'll see how it comes out anyway. And
I'm honored.
So
we're talking around the globe. You're a day ahead of me, sir.
So yeah, there is time travel.
There is.
As long as you're not on a flat Earth.
What would you like to hear about my mom? I would love to talk about my mom.
So, your mum's name was, and go from there.
Betty Grace Anderson.
And how many kids?
She was originally her name was, when she began her work for Howard Hughes, which I'm guessing you will probably bring up. My mom was Howard Hughes' personal secretary.
Yeah.
Back in the 1950s. Howard Hughes had 2 secretaries. He married one of them, and my mom married my dad.
Oh, that's good.
Yes,
it's good he's got 2 secretaries. He must have lots of money.
So anyhow, but at this point, Howard Hughes was a recluse. He was very, very influential. He was aerospace at the time. It was just aero, but apparently there was more space involved than we've been led to believe. So my mom, when I was a child, she had the first memory I have of this is my mom talking to me when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and it was sort of out of the blue. I think that maybe John Glenn had just done his flight or something, and I was very excited. I was always excited about space, Paul. It's always been.
Oh, hang on a second. I think we got a motorbike outside. I'm not sure if you can hear it.
I can't hear it.
Yeah, we might have to start that bit again.
That's okay. I'll repeat it. No problem, dude.
This guy's got like a 12-cylinder engine that sticks,
like a rice burner.
Yeah, it's like a hot rod of the engine sticking out the bonnet, and it practically rattles our own house here. It's like an earthquake going off. I think he's driving away now. I think he's on a motorbike tonight. The motorbike is only half as loud. So where did we get to? Howard Hughes. So
I was telling you about my mom. And I'm not even sure how she got the job. She worked as a deputy sheriff in Muscatine, Iowa when she was young. For some reason, people liked my mom. She was an influential person. Everybody loved my mom. If you met her, it was like, oh, she's really interesting. I like her, And people would tend to tell her things. They would talk just off the cuff to my mom.
Yeah.
Everybody did that. I did that.
Yeah.
I was her son. And I miss her so much. I love her. I love my mom so much. Just a quality person. But Howard Hughes had picked her for one of his 2 personal secretaries. And at this point, he was a recluse, and he had an assignment he sent my mom out on. My mom first told me about this when I was just a little kid. I was like out of kindergarten. And she started talking about it. And she kept talking about it for a few years. I think that she thought I was safe. I think she thought I would forget about it, but I didn't forget about it. I it was like, wow, my mom, She, so what she said was that she went out to the desert. She didn't specify which desert. She didn't say that she flew there. Las Vegas is close. Edwards is close. It's right up here in Lancaster area,
What's this with, hang on, was this with Howard Hughes that she flew out to the desert?
She either drove out there, she didn't say whether she flew or drove. I don't know.
Because you talk about in the article about the German scientist, von Braun.
Yes. Well, that's up ahead.
Yeah. So she actually carried on with that guy as well. Is that what you're saying? Both of them.
I don't know. My mom claimed that she knew Werner von Braun. That he had a pet name for her. He called her Betty Grace, which was her first and her middle name.
Mm-hmm. So you're not sure if the desert was through him or Howard Hughes?
No, it was through Howard Hughes. It was all through Hughes aircraft.
So would Howard Hughes have been to this desert underground base?
He sent my mom there because he was not going anywhere at that point. He was a recluse. He was a shut-in. Yeah,
he didn't OCD personality.
Yes, he talked to my mom through an intercom.
Yeah.
And she was the next room over from him. There were two rooms. There was another room for his other secretary. There was a second room for my mom.
Yeah.
You would open the door. There was a hallway that you would go down, and it would open up to the parking lot. She saw Howard Hughes one time.
Oh, right.
He was walking Chaplin-esque down the hallway with a briefcase, hat on his head. He opened the door. He looked around. He saw her looking at him, and he walked out. And that was the only time she ever saw him. And I believe it was like 5 or 6 years that she worked for Hughes.
Well, didn't he interview her, though, for the job?
Probably have somebody interview her.
So he would have seen her?
I don't think that he interviewed her.
He would have been in a room next door with a half mirror so he could see her, but not her.
Yeah, he probably listened to it, but I don't know that. She didn't talk about that.
Right.
But she liked him. She thought he was eccentric. There was a story where he asked her to go to See's Candy and get the recipe for their fudge because he loved their fudge.
So what year was this in?
It was in the late 1950s. I don't really have a year for it.
Oh, okay. So it would have been after the Roswell crash then?
Oh, yeah, well after.
Well after that.
It was at least like 10, 11 years after the Roswell crash, probably.
I know he was a filmmaker, mostly.
Yes, he was.
And he invented a big plane, wasn't it? And flew a big plane across the sea. Mm-hmm. Was that him? Yeah, I was pretty sure it was him. But it didn't work very well, did it? It was too heavy or something?
It was an amazing film. I mean, he filmed actual biplanes and at war with each other.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the black and whites. Yeah.
I think there might have even been casualties in the film,
Yeah.
He was a very intense man. He had he had a passion for whatever it was that he was doing. He certainly had ADD to a very large extent, and also OCD.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I mean, what really hit me as a child, and still hits me now as an old man of 59 years old, is that my mom said that he sent her out to a deep underground base. Mm-hmm. It was in the middle of the desert. Now, she didn't tell me how she got there. She didn't tell me which desert it was. Mm. I've talked about this at length with my friend Jeff Krause, who's the state director of California for MUFON.
Yep.
I've talked with everybody about this, a lot of people. Yeah. I think I've talked with Bruce Maccabee. I've talked with a few people,
It's the sort of thing you wouldn't forget, though.
Yeah. I've gotten other little gleanings from strange people that you would never guess that you get them from, just random people.
Right.
Oh, my grandfather worked in Area 51. They did have yellow umbrellas in the cafe. You know?
Right.
But my mom said that she went out to the desert,
Mm-hmm.
that they took her to a shack. It was just, she called it a shack.
Oh.
You know, I don't know, you know, I don't know what that means, but she said that we went in and there was an elevator. It was an Otis elevator.
Yeah.
She specified that. And she said that the door opened, we stepped in, and it went down.
Yeah.
And it went down, and it kept going down.
Right.
And she started getting scared because this thing kept, I mean, you could feel the inertia of it going down. And she didn't say it was a mile under the ground, but she alluded to that. And that was, it took at least a minute to get where she was going.
Yeah.
So she stood there, and the doors opened up. She was with a few security personnel. The doors opened up, and she said that there was a little city under there. That was what she called it. She said that it was a little city under the desert.
It does sound like a sci-fi, doesn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
And I heard this when I was, you know, I mean, it must have been 1963, 64 the first time. I remember because, you know, I was a little kid. I watched the Jetsons. I watched the Flintstones, the Great Gazoo.
So what age?
Know?
What age was that? What age?
It was probably 5 or so.
Okay.
And she kept talking about it off and on.
Right.
And she would talk about, well, we would go down this elevator, you know, we'd open up and they would take us in a golf cart. Mm-hmm. And there were movie theaters, there was a drugstore, there was a guy who would actually do my hair, is what my mom told me. She said,
we call them hairdressers over here.
Yeah. She had a hairdresser a mile under the desert.
Yeah.
And she said that it was a little city down there, that there was a cafe that we would go to. They had sun lamps, and that there were yellow umbrellas over the tables.
Right.
And that they really tried to make it seem like it was just very normal, but of course it wasn't.
No.
And the best that I could get from her, as far as what she was doing down there, because that's what I still want to know. You know? I have ideas.
Yeah, I don't
but she
blame
said
you.
that they were working on esoteric projects.
Yeah.
Esoteric projects. And I heard about this until maybe age 8.
You might want to explain what that means to some of the people out there. I suppose black projects.
They were working on black government projects. You know, I mean, when I look at that, you know, I think about, you know, Corso, you know, Philip Corso.
Yeah.
As messed up as he was, I think there was a kernel of truth in there. You know? And it very much aligned with some of the stuff that my mom said. I've met other people who's, you know, I know one woman whose grandfather worked at Area 51. She said, oh, there were yellow umbrellas over the table.
So that sort of confirms
They had a French cafe.
Mm.
They had a French cafe. You could order wine or champagne. And, you know, you could kick back, and it was just like being on top of the earth, you know.
Yeah.
But there they were under the desert, a mile under. My mom claimed that she knew Werner von Braun.
Yeah.
That he was a very nice man, she said. He was charming.
But how did she actually meet him? Was it underground or?
I don't know.
She didn't
I
say.
wish I knew. She never explained it.
So she might have been taken along to a presentation and met him there, you see. And he might have been talking about UFOs or aliens or something.
Probably. I mean, my mom knew about aliens.
Mm.
Now, when she wasn't talking about the underground base, because she never talked about aliens and the underground base.
Yeah.
There were two different things she would talk about. She would talk about the underground base. She would talk about Werner von Braun. Apparently, she met, you know, John Glenn at one point. She said, "Oh, he hurt his back in the bathtub. I couldn't believe it. It was horrible. You know, they were going to ground him." And you know, she knew all this stuff, and then she would clam up. And the older I got, the less she talked.
Yeah.
And when I was in 4th grade, I was about 9 years old at that point. I did a little show and tell at school. They were asking, "Well, what do your parents do?" And I said, "Well, you know, my dad is a landscaper."
Yeah.
And he rolls sod, and he makes, you know, he puts in sprinkler systems and stuff. And my mom, she worked for Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
And she worked at an underground military base that was in the middle of the desert. And, you know, it's like the teacher kind of stopped me, and they called my mom. They called my parents in, but my mom went in. And my mom is who went in.
Yeah.
And I guess she did some fast talking. Everybody looked at me strange after that. The UFO books disappeared from the school library, by the way.
Yeah.
Because my mom talked about UFOs too. She said that it was a very real phenomenon.
Yeah.
My mom, I grew up knowing that we had made contact with aliens.
Mm.
My mom said that it happened a long time ago. She said that, we know all, we know all that. You know, the public doesn't know it. We know all that. It's.
Did you know that they're abducting people?
She didn't ever say that.
No.
My aunt around 1968 brought the Look magazine that had the synopsis of the Betty and Barney Hill abduction to our house. It was it was right after Christmas, actually, because we all had Christmas presents. I think I had like the Lost in Space set, you know.
Oh, yeah.
We're playing with all our stuff. And my mom and my aunt were having this heated argument. My aunt brought the magazine, and she was asking my mom, well, what do you think of this? And my mom said, well, that sounds like it could be valid.
Mm.
I mean, there are extraterrestrial, she didn't use that word. She used something, you know, prosaic, like space people, but she said there are people that are not from the Earth that we have met, and this could actually be a valid thing.
Mm.
My mom, I don't think my mom knew. At that point, she was not working for Hughes. She stopped working for him in 1958 when I was born.
Right.
But she seemed to have a handle on the information. It pissed my aunt off righteously.
Mm.
And my cousins and I were like ears glued to the door, you know. I just couldn't do it.
Well, as you said, that if you're religious, also you tend to not to believe it, and
sure,
it conflicts with their religious views. And
my mom wasn't religious. My dad was.
Oh, right.
So she had to tailor things for Dad. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. But that's what I heard, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And as the years went on, as I became older, especially as an older, it was actually past my teenage years. My teenage years were a little rough. You know, I experimented with drugs like everybody did in Los Angeles at the time. You know, the sort of thing, it was the music, and it was sort of what was happening. Yeah. But I at one point, it was about 1970. It was 1974
right.
Easter. I made a commitment to Christ through a church that was right. local, and so the whole UFO thing wasn't really convenient anymore for me.
Right.
But my mom she still talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, as I got older, I sort of shed that skin. Yeah. And I started asking her questions again, and her questions became more tailored to me and more measured. But she did tell me, you know, it's like I started taking her to movies. I tried to get her to talk. You know, I tried to get her to talk. I wanted to know more. So, and she had security clearances. And I found out, you know, later on that she kept her security clearance until the day she died. She never lost her security clearance.
But you don't have a badge?
Very high.
You don't have a badge or paperwork of any kind?
No, there was none of that.
So you didn't have to wear a name tag saying...
She was able to make one phone call and get my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law wanted to join the FBI. She come from a past where, you know, her father, I guess some people were in law enforcement, and she wanted to get into the FBI. And she asked me if my mom. She said, "Hey, you know what? You know, Nancy was saying that your mom has security clearances. Is there any way she could help me? I want to join the FBI." I said, "I don't know, but let me ask her. I'll ask her, you know." And I asked my mom, and she made a phone call, and she called up my ex-mother-in-law. She's my ex-mother-in-law, but she was my ex-mother-in-law at the time, actually. But I liked her. I still do like her.
Right.
You know. So, but anyway, my mom made a couple phone calls, and suddenly she had security clearances, or she was able to get security clearance.
Mm.
And that really impressed me at the time. I didn't know that my mom was that connected still, but she was.
Well, that proves that maybe she did have what she said she had, because she got someone else the clearance.
Well, we left out the whole, you know, the middle of the story.
Yeah, the middle of the story about her being a recruitment agent.
Yes. She had left Howard Hughes in 1958 after I was born.
Mm.
And she tried to be a housewife, and things didn't go well for my dad financially.
Yeah.
He was one of three that had a corporation called Corco. They had a open heart machine. Oops.
You dropped it.
Sorry about that. Hold on. I dropped my freaking phone.
We cut that bit out, I suppose.
Sorry about that. That's the natural cut. Cut. All right, so here we go again. So my dad. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
I think so.
His brother was Robert Anderson, who was a very famous cardiologist. He was Walt Disney's cardiologist.
Right.
So he and another guy by the name of Dr. K, they invented the first reusable open heart machine.
Right.
And my dad was in pre-med at the time, and my uncle told him, you might as well quit pre-med because we need you to be our ambassador to go to different countries and sell our machine.
Yeah.
It's going to revolutionize heart surgery, which it did. You know, it did.
Yeah.
Franco in Spain, there were all kinds of. I mean, we had a huge Europe trip that we did back in 1965 that was all paid for because my dad was showing off this heart-lung machine.
Right.
And it looked like it was going to be the all-in-all for our family, and my mom was going to be cared for the rest of her life, that it would never be an issue how we would pay for anything. You know, we visited Switzerland, we were in Geneva with little, paddle boats and all that stuff. We went to the ruins in Italy, and my dad was constantly giving conferences about the machine. They sold a bunch of them.
Right.
The trouble is, a couple of years later, somebody invented a machine that you could it was made out of plastic. And you could throw the damn thing away. You didn't have to stick it into, you didn't have to sterilize it,
Right.
So my dad kind of went broke. My uncle and Dr. K, well, they were both heart surgeons, so they were okay. But my dad, not so much. He quit medical school, and here we were. And we had a house that we had bought in Thousand Oaks, California.
So how many kids were in the family by then?
It was myself and my sister. It was my mom and my dad. So it was four of us. And my dad wound up becoming a landscape contractor. He was the landscape contractor at Pepperdine University out here in Malibu.
Right.
He did okay with that, but it was not what my mom was expecting.
No.
And while I was growing up during the 70s, it felt like my mom was very dissatisfied with her life.
Yeah.
That she had some idea of what her life was going to be like, and it hadn't gone that way at all.
All right.
So my mom started working employment agency stuff.
Yeah.
And slowly she started accruing all the aerospace companies. And I watched it. I saw her do it. Yeah. And she got Lockheed Martin, she had Rockwell and Northrop, and she had everybody. She had everybody. Raytheon, she was staffing all their factories.
Right.
And she would interview the people, and she'd send them out. And they started asking her about scientists, and my mom apparently, either she had kept her security clearance or she had had it reinstated. I'm not sure which it was.
Oh, okay.
My feeling is she probably kept it. She was really proud of it. She was a patriot. She
Right.
was the all-American wave a flag
Well,
person.
she took all her secrets to the grave, mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly, anyway.
Mostly. I got a couple of them. My sister didn't get any of them, you know. I think my aunt might have a couple of them, but she isn't. I have to push a little bit more. But anyway, but my mom started working freelance, and she was sending scientists out. Well, they weren't necessarily documented scientists. She would find people that were interesting.
Yeah.
People that had an aptitude for mathematics.
Yeah.
Walking computers is what people were looking for at the time. Now, this is before the PC. It was before the digital age had taken off. So, and my mom got one friend of mine out. His name is Robert.
Mm-hmm.
His mother, ironically, was my math teacher. She was the worst teacher I ever had. I hated her. she made me sit in the rain once because I didn't do my homework.
Oh, yeah.
But he disappeared for some time, and he came back. And I knew that my mom got him out. It was for Northrop. He came back, and he was a little freaked out, but he was still proud. And he said, well, you want to know what I'm doing? I'll show you. And he went into the house. And he brought back a readout sheet, like the old computer readout sheets that were sort of, you know, they would fold together.
Oh, yes.
It was all green, you know, with a black type.
Yeah.
Old school type.
Yeah.
And he's like going through all these pages. It's like, what is he showing me? We're supposed to go see a concert. And he got down to this number, and he had used an orange grease pencil. He made a circle around this number.
Right.
And he said, this is what went wrong. This was what it ruined. You have no idea how much money went into this hole. And it was a problem, and their computer screwed up somehow. They screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I was doing, and I got paid really well. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he suddenly had like a nice car, you know. But weird things kept happening to him, and he disappeared again. But I didn't have any information about what that was about, you know.
Yeah, maybe he went to this underground base, huh?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe they have underground, maybe they have underwater, maybe they have outer space. I don't know. I don't know, Paul. You know, what I heard about was the city under the desert that was there in 1958. I know it was there in 1958. And I heard about it for years. As I got older, my mom clammed up, but when she was dying of cancer, she started talking a little bit more. I asked her about Bob Lazar. Actually. And she said that, well, I've never heard of him. I've never heard of him before. I told her, I said, well, this guy says that they have UFOs out in the Nevada desert. And they were, you know, engineered from something that came from another planet. And anyhow, the guy's name is Bob Lazar. He's talking. I'm just wondering, have you heard of this guy? And she didn't say, oh, Earl. You know, we don't have UFOs in the desert. No. And you know, my mom didn't suffer fools.
No.
If you said something stupid, she would correct you immediately.
Right.
She was smart. You know,
Right.
She was a math whiz. She was a spelling whiz. She knew, you know, she could do the, you know, the secretarial, I can't say it, old man here. But, you know, I mean, she was very, very smart. But, you know, she didn't say, oh, Earl, there aren't UFOs in the desert. She said, oh, no, I never heard of Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar, I never heard of him. You know? She changed the subject, and that's kind of how it was. It was sort of, I walked away from it going, well, she did say that there were not flying saucers in the desert.
So do you think Bob is legit yourself, or 50-50?
I like to think he probably was a, you know, he tells everybody that he had these degrees. But what my mom looked for, and what Northrop and Lockheed, because she worked for Lockheed during the Ben Rich period, and I heard about it, you know. I mean, she said, oh, I'm a headhunter for Lockheed right now. And it's, you know, they're doing some really cool stuff for all you lovers.
Yeah.
She didn't tell me what it was, but
No.
you'd love it. But, you know, they looked for special talents, and they didn't have to have a parchment.
No.
They did not have to have a degree. In fact, you know, they were looking for just geniuses that were just geniuses on their own.
Yes.
They could look at something sideways, look at something differently.
Yeah, a lot of my mates were kind of like that, geniuses. I got one that can read science books and understand all the maths in it and stuff, and say, well, that's wrong, that proof is wrong. So he's really
interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm trying to get him to do his own episodes on my own channel, and he's got his own theory about the universe and how it operates, and he's a believer of Tesla's work as well, and you'll probably find him very interesting.
Man,
Yeah, you'll find him very interesting, and he can talk all this scientific stuff, and it's hard to keep up with him sometimes. But I got another mate that he was a few years behind me at school, and he was amazed at the stuff I was doing on Apple II computers. I was doing artificial intelligence on them, and I had a program that booted up and had its own DOS system, so you couldn't hack into it. So it had to boot up, and you had to type a password to actually get the program to run in the first place.
Oh my God! What was that early internet thing? It was Prodigy or something. That was fun.
This was definitely pre-internet, and we're talking about 8-bit computers and 16K of RAM. What we could do in it, and this thing could actually speak to you too. So it would say F off if you tried to break into it, because it used to be a Control-Alt combinations on the Apple where you could break into stuff called an interrupt, and it would detect that and say no. So some kid used to keep pressing that button on it because he was mucking around with my software, and the teacher was looking over his way, and it was swearing all the time because he had the button going up and down before it had time to reset, so it kept playing the speech over and over again.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
Yeah, so this program I wrote was actually interprets normal English, so you could type a sentence in like Charlie is a dog, and you can then say Charlie has 4 legs, and it would remember everything you were telling it, and at the end you could say please give me a quiz, and it would give you a quiz, and it would say who is Charlie, and you say dog, and it would say correct. And so I was doing all this on Apple II even before AI was a buzzword, and my mate at school thought I was fantastic. And I didn't have
Are you a fan of have you ever read Neuromancer by Gibson or any of his novels? Wonderful stuff.
I didn't actually do a lot of reading of books.
Okay. William Gibson, he kind of, wrote all about everything that's going on right now in his novel Neuromancer, Count Zero. He had a few really cool books back in the late 70s, early 80s. He still writes wonderful writer. Interesting guy, too. Interesting guy.
So I always struggled with English at school. I was always a wee bit behind others at school because my life was quite a interesting one, too. My dad was in the RAF after the World War II, and Mum ended up travelling to Scotland with him. He actually learnt how to set up radar and maintain radar systems for the Royal Air Force, and he was also sent to Libya, so we went and moved from Scotland to Libya, because I was born in Scotland. You wouldn't know it. And I was
I catch that. I catch a little tiny brogue in there, a little brogue.
Well, my English parents have their own sort of accents, of course, but they're not Queen's English or Londoners that have a real sort of a sloppy English, I think. And but I do pick up some of her bad habits, and also I've picked up the local lingo habits as well, of course. And but yeah, we ended up in Libya for 1.5 years, and I was 1.5, and I was probably around about 3 when we left there. But yeah, there's some stories that Dad used to tell about how it was a bit scary there at times with the locals. There was
Would you like a bit of cream in your Gaddafi?
Yeah, and we went swimming in the was it Mediterranean Sea there or whatever it was, and used to have barracudas swim right past us, and we didn't even know they were dangerous fish. They have lots of rows of teeth. So yeah, I got some photos of me as a kid with on top of one of these sand houses they have over there. Well, I don't know what you call them, limestone houses or something, but we're on top of the roof, and I've got this tortoise, or what we want to call it. As a kid, was a pet over there. But we had a strange story. We landed there and we were all thirsty and hungry, and we got into these watermelons, and we all got very, very sick on these watermelons. And I loved them, but we all got sick. And turns out
the water in the melons.
Yeah, apparently
bacteria.
No, but
for your flora.
Yeah, apparently Dad went to the base and said all the family's sick, so he got medicine off the commander there and said, "Oh, you haven't been eating the local produce, have you?" He said, "Yeah, watermelons." He said, "No, not watermelons. They grow them in human waste."
Oh.
Yeah. So we got really sick on that.
That's like E. coli. That's bad.
all that. It would have been on the skin off the fruit and stuff, you know. But we didn't know that. So we have some stories in our past like that. And then eventually we went to Germany. I was about 3, I suppose, there. And we got...
That's fun. My daughter's favorite city is freaking Berlin. That's my published author daughter.
Right.
She has a published novel that's doing really well, actually, out there.
I suppose...
It's called Alice. It's called Alice
Yeah.
by Ivy Anderson.
So I remember things from my past, you know, little images here and there, but I don't remember the full story, only from what my parents told us what we used to do and stuff. But we went to a place called Hilschenbach, and we lived in a Hock house, which is a high-rise. And, we're up probably 20 stories up in this high-rise building there, and we made some real good friends, and this guy was ex-Nazi army.
Oh.
And he said, "I'd never know my best friend would ever be English people." And this guy literally cried when we left Germany to come to New Zealand.
People change.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
So, but yeah, Dad used to go away, and we didn't used to see him for 6 months. So he's a bit like your mother in the way.
She would disappear. She would go on, contracts. Back in the 1990s and the 2000s.
Yeah.
And she'd be out of town for months, and she couldn't say where she was going. She'd be on the phone. I'd hear her, she was always cheerful and sweet and eloquent to people. She was a people person, and she was gone. I remember back in before the first Gulf War, she was gone for was it 3 months? It was a while.
Yeah.
She was gone, and she came back, and she said, "I can't tell you where I was, but there was sand in her suitcases, and there was Saudi gold, headscarves,
Dad used to
stuff.
do that too. He used to come back with these gold bracelets from Mum, and they'd be worth like tens of thousands of dollars now. We're too scared.
Sure.
She's too scared to wear them because they're so expensive now. But back in those days, he'd spend like his week's wage on one of these bracelets, and now it's worth so much money.
Of course, yeah.
Amazing artwork in them though. They got patterns and grooves, and they've got made from several carats of gold. And
that's
22,
how they that's how they exchange there, And my mom said that she would go out. I mean, she talked about it eventually. She said, "Well, I always had to have like a couple of handlers with me.
Yeah.
These big dudes.
Yeah.
And we'd go out to the bazaar and stuff."
But that was in the
about it.
But that was in the 90s. No, it was in the 90s though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When she went.
That was right before the first 91, I guess.
Yeah.
It was right before the first Gulf War. I mean, she got back, and a month later we were at war with, with Iraq. It was the first one.
Well, we were in Libya back in the 60s, early 70s sort of thing,
Sure.
and Germany, and so it's a bit before your mum's time there.
Yeah. Well, it's all the same thing, though. It's how dare God give you our oil, you know?
Yeah.
You know? They're trying to get it back, I guess. But it wasn't really ours. It wasn't yours. It wasn't anybody's, but theirs. You know, but I guess that was the Bitcoin of the time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's probably going to change soon. I have a funny feeling that it's probably not going to be a petroleum, you know, based economy for much longer. It's just a gut feeling. You know, it's dead dinosaurs really, and I think things are going a different direction. And it'll be interesting. I hope I live a long time. I hope I get to see everything that plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're going to go to Mars and we're going to do all this stuff. You know, I think we are truly on the fringe of the space age. When it happens, it's going to be quite revolutionary.
Yeah,
It'll change all of our lives.
Yeah, I used to read those books as a kid, and they used to say we'd be in space stations by 2020. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, where's my flying car?
Yeah, and the flying cars.
Yeah.
I still got a book on the shelf there of the early Thunderbirds, and that used to have.
Sure, yeah.
It used to have articles in them with the rocket cars that used to go 300 miles per hour on a salt lake and stuff like that. And
that's nothing, man.
No, nothing nowadays, is it?
300 miles, you know.
Yeah, you think about our technology's all come about in the last 150 years. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Well, my granddad died. My granddad died the year before, and when he was born, there was only horse and carts on the road, and he remembers the first car coming out was the Ford T.
Sure.
Yeah, and computers obviously was beyond his capabilities. You know, my mum's in her 70s, and she's quite happy with the old tablets, and she's using them every day, and talks to people on it, and uses Messenger for Facebook. But
people can learn.
Yeah.
You can teach old dogs new tricks.
She used to install Windows. You know, I used to do all the computer work because I'm a computer tech, and I used to set it up. And I left for Australia in the 90s to go and live over there permanently, but it didn't sort of happen that way, and I come back to New Zealand. But that's another story. And
you can't really emigrate there. I mean, I can't.
Well, I can.
Mean, you have to be under 50.
Well, I got a British.
And you have to be self-sufficient. You have to bring a fortune with you, and then you can emigrate. You know?
Well, that's what the
probably.
Asians do. What they do is they lend a lot of money from their relatives, and they could put it in a bank account for 9 months or 12 months in the bank account in New Zealand, and they get permanent residence here.
Well, you're their mates, you know.
And then what they do is they simply give the money back to the auntie or whatever it is that lent it to them.
It's the Anzac, you know.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of. We used to have a lot of homestays, Asian homestays here, and we had a Swiss man and Japanese and South Korean guy. And he used to be a pilot, and he used to fly North Koreans about, and he used to have some stories about them. So we're sort of like a multicultural household, and
that's LA too. Los Angeles is like that. That's why I love where I live.
So
I love Los Angeles. You know?
So we often have
it's a melting pot.
Yeah, we have a lot of these Asians that were homestays living permanently in Christchurch now in New Zealand. And they often come around each year, Christmas, and bring the parents gifts and normally whiskey or something like that, and sort of celebrate. But they're still in touch, you know. And
sure, and that's good for the economy too. You know,
yeah.
You want people coming in and out. Yeah, that's
well,
they got
they got very rich parents. Some of these, the millionaires, you know, in China.
Sure.
And one sells soy products, and he's a big seller of it. So yeah, and one of our homestays become a flight attendant. But he was more.
Well, China is the future, apparently. I mean,
well,
you know, my country is sadly, you know, they're trying to be great again.
Yeah.
But you know, other countries are trying to do something new, I think they probably have the right idea.
Well,
it's unfortunate.
You could see how
so
Japan sort of coped after all the nukes that went off. They changed completely after
that.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and now China's new electronic warehouse facility.
Well, let's hope they don't have their Chernobyl, you know. I mean, we hope that they're very, very safe. I mean, you know, there's a certain discipline that comes with the technology. You know, you have to be willing to put the money in to keep it safe.
Yeah.
I'm all for, you know, I'm not anti-nuclear power.
No.
I mean, anti-nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
But you know, nuclear power is great. You know, once they get clean fusion, we're, you know, good to go, you know. And they probably have it. You know,
well, I think they're on the edge of getting that sorted, actually.
Yeah, and that'll be a good thing, and
yeah.
and I'm not against that. But,
I think that will change the world completely once they bring that in. I think New Zealand might get one of those because we ban nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
The US Army can't come here if they've got any form of nuclear power or nuclear weapons on their ships.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
So Australia is the only place they can go.
Yeah.
But I think
we're our mates.
I think a lot of the UFO
Love
activity
Australia.
is to do with where the nuclear bases are situated, though. And
Alice Springs is interesting.
Mm.
I spent a little time out in the Red Center, and I got to talk with a few people, you know, rangers that worked out there, and they all had UFO stories. They had crazy stories. It's like, oh, you stay here much longer, mate. You know, you're going to see something. We see something almost every night. You know, is like they would have stuff going back and forth from Alice Springs to who knows where, and you know, it's certainly a hot spot.
Yeah.
Lord knows what they're doing there, but you know, there's certainly a lot of UFOs seen out in Alice Springs area. You know, it's a thing.
I think we don't see them as much as we used to in the early days because they're now, as we've improved their technology, if they're real creatures and craft, they would improve their technology as well.
Yeah.
And they could quite
I
easily.
don't know. I mean, I think that maybe we've learned how to, you know, keep certain races out of here. Or,
well, that
you
could
know,
be true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that we really don't know about. I don't know about it.
Maybe there's a secret space program.
About any of that. Maybe, I don't know.
Secret space
Trump
program, yeah.
Trump yesterday, he said he wants to start a space force. He sounded like Corey Good. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, I read that,
exactly
yeah.
like Corey Good. Yeah,
Yes.
But, you know, I mean, well, maybe he'll do it, you know, but I hope he doesn't. I mean, we don't want Star Wars.
No.
I mean, that was something my mom said, though. I mean, I took my mom to see Star Wars. That's something I didn't tell you about. It was 1977. It was the day after it came out, right? We went to see it in Santa Monica. We were out there, and, you know, I love my mom, so I'd hang out with her every once in a while. I'd go out there, and we'd do like a day trip, you know. It's like, what do you got to do? And I'll do it with you, Mom, you know. And so we were out in Santa Monica, and Star Wars was playing. I was like saying, let's go see this. It's supposed to be really good. We saw the film, and I saw it, and I thought, oh, you know, they totally botched up the whole light speed, you know, the parsecs, you know, it's like it was a measure of, you know, distance and not, I mean, what, but, you know, my mom was just like, she started talking, it loosed her tongue.
Yeah.
For some reason. She was like, oh, Earl, you have no idea how real that film is. It really is like that out there. It really is like that out there. You know, there is alien life in space. Or she didn't say alien life, she said there's life off of Earth. And it's very, very real.
So you reckon that UK hacker that discovered the secret space program and people with ship names and people's names on board them is actually correct?
Off-world, what was it? Off-world?
I can't think of the name.
Operatives or something.
Yeah, something like that.
He might have actually gotten something there.
I think he did, because he was downloading the image when he got shut off. Because you got to remember, back in his time, back in this time, he didn't have fibre connections. It was all dial-up connections.
Yeah.
And he was connecting from a dial-up connection to another modem to another modem. and of course they all had different various speeds. And when you download a 1 megabit, or 1 megabyte picture, you know it's going to take forever on dial-up. Remember the time?
Yeah, to wait for it.
No, you've probably forgotten about it already. But I remember the screeching, and you see the image slowly coming up one line at a time every minute, and it used to take forever just to download a photograph on dial-up. But with those,
saw a big cigar like hanging over the earth, apparently.
Mm.
And there was apparently he was able to get into a list of off-world
operatives,
soldiers.
Yeah.
And no, I think that's probably very valid. He's not Corey Good.
No.
That I'll tell you. Corey Good is bullshit. He made it up full cloth. Maybe he is starry-eyed, or maybe he's crazy, or maybe he wanted to make a buck. I don't know the man, but I don't believe him. But no, the story you're speaking of,
I think the guys did stumble across something. Yeah. And
Trump mentioned that we're going to start a space force, so maybe it seems like they're trying to align reality with what we've already heard right now.
Yeah. It's all starting to fit together slowly as the years creep on.
Very slowly, yes.
Yeah.
This is how they do disclosure, apparently.
Oh, right. Can't just... Well, even the Catholic Church have adjusted their belief system so people don't freak out for it.
Yes, they have. They have. C.S. Lewis was ahead of them. He wrote Paralandra and those wonderful books many years ago. 1963, 65 and 66, I think he wrote those. Hit that hideous strength, Paralandra and Out of the Silent Planet. He was a theologian, but he was ahead of his time. He was seeing something, and a lot of people they see it, they feel it, and it's coming to light right now. And it's exciting times. It's exciting times to be on planet Earth. I think the next 20 years is going to be 20 years from now. If you want to talk to me again here,
I'll talk to you every week if you want.
About,
we can talk about a different subject every week if you want to.
Cabbages and Keens, my friend.
We'll see how this one comes out.
Well, I think you got something there. Is there anything that I left out?
I'm just trying to think. There probably is. So, your mother died of cancer. There was something at the end of...
Yes, she did.
She
had cancer like 6 different times.
6 different times, yeah.
And it was weird because it was not a metastasis like you normally see.
Mm.
That's why the doctors were baffled, because usually you'll get cancer and they'll metastasize to another organ. But no, she'd be clean. And then there was no sign of metastasis at all, and then suddenly it would pop up somewhere else, totally unrelated. And she kept, going back and getting parts of herself cut off. Poor mom.
Do you think? Poor mom. Do you think she was?
I wanted her to sue the government.
Yeah, but do you think she was targeted? Maybe they found out that she had spoken to you, and maybe they were going to punish her.
No, I think she was just around dangerous shit. Is what happened.
Well, you reckon she might have seen she might have been around the nuclear blast zone where the radiation was, you reckon?
That would not, of course, that would not surprise me at all. My mom spoke about Alamogordo every now and then with no reference points around it. Oh, it's such a nice place. And she dropped the subjects like, where did that come from? And, as time went on, I would find out, well, it's where they were doing all the atomic bomb, the Trinity stuff. And, I think that my mom probably visited some of the, probably saw some of that.
Yeah, well, she might have gone into...
They didn't protect them.
She might have gone into one of those labs to see someone, and they were mucking around with radiation. It may have been, like you said, they might have been trying to reverse engineer a UFO crash part, and it may have been emitting radiation they didn't know about.
Sure. Lots of people have been harmed by UFOs. I mean, we have a few accounts that are very, very, very well documented.
Yeah.
So
that woman that got burnt, wasn't she, on the skin, and that melted the car?
Absolutely.
I can't think of the name of it now. The diamond-shaped UFO.
Of course.
Yeah.
It might have been the flying pumpkin seed. That's what some people think.
Oh, right.
Call it if you go and Google it, it'll come up for you. Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting people. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting people in ufology, and I'm meeting few through my channel now. Of course, I've met you through the groups and stuff.
Yeah.
Which
I think the ones you can trust are the ones that really they can't tell you everything. It's like it's the proverbial story of the gurus trying to describe the elephant.
Yeah.
One guy has a tail, one guy has the trunk and the ear, and they compartmentalize, and they do that purposefully. That's how they keep things secret.
So
they compartmentalize.
So what's your opinion? Why do you think aliens are coming here to Earth?
My personal opinion is that it is not a nefarious thing, because we're still here. I mean, if they wanted to get rid of us, they could have introduced a virus, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. It would be very easy to do. We could probably do it at this point. We could do that.
Yeah.
So, here we are talking about it.
Well, we got some Russians that are sick at the moment. You've heard that on the news? They've been poisoned.
That's sort
apparently
of a precision. Precision thing.
Yeah, the table apparently was toxic that they were sitting at. But that's like what's it? Stanley what's his name? The one that invented the water motor using hydrogen. He stood up and said he's been poisoned and collapsed on the floor dead.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine why. Fortunes, they hang on the balance. And, fortune, money makes the world go round.
Yeah. Well, you heard the I don't
Cabaret,
know.
Right.
Speaking of that, have you ever seen the documentary "Who Killed the Electric Car"? It's a very good documentary.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and he's talking about how he invented a better battery, and he sold it to this company, which turned out to be a sub company of an oil company, and they squashed the battery technology so it can never be used. And that battery was making the cars go like 3 times the distance, electric cars.
Yeah. Well, Babylon had a battery back thousands of years ago.
Oh, yeah. I talk about that. I talk about that in the episode, it's a battery, and I call it the Egyptian light bulb episode, but I talk about the battery in that a wee bit.
That's all very valid.
Yeah.
I think that, Ancient Aliens, the show, they have to come up with a new episode every week. So a lot of that is bollocks, as you know.
Yeah.
But, then again, there's certainly, there's a lot of interesting things.
Yeah.
The Babylon battery is just one of them.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians might have had a light bulb. They very well might.
Well, I actually talked about that in the episode, and it came out very plausible, I thought. And
sure.
That they were talking about it being a lotus flower, but if you have a look at it, it actually looks like an eggplant. But I talk about that in the episode. I don't know if you ever watched that episode or not of mine, but you might enjoy it.
I might have seen some of that, Paul. I've watched a few of your episodes.
Yeah, it's quite a long episode.
I've enjoyed.
Well, it's good. It's good you enjoy it.
Yes,
as long as you question it, and
why I'm talking with you with candor,
Yeah.
because I respect you and I respect your research. So there you go.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I think a lot of people that following me now on the channel are like yourself. They like my method and my honesty and applying science to the theory to see if it's possible. And I do research and see, well, what were they mining back in those days? Did they mine the metal that could make a filament for a light bulb? And I go through that whole process in the episode and say, well, it's very possible.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah.
They had the technology to mine a filament at that time.
The thing is, they
possible.
They may have only built one of them. It might have been just one prototype, and it might have been inside. It might have been inside that pyramid where they discovered the writing on the wall, and it simply just got vandalized and taken away and cut it up into bits. Because they probably would have had metal on it that was precious, like gold or silver or something.
Somebody will do that to us someday, probably.
But they said the other theory, flip side of that, was that it's actually representing a harvest of some sort, and the snake obviously part of the harvest. You know, maybe they come out during the harvest when they're cutting down grass or whatever. But yeah, apparently the Egyptians lived on eggplant quite a lot, so it was part of one of their crops they used to eat. So it kind of fits that they would use symbolic meaning to represent a real physical thing. You know, but you have these people that say, no, it's just a story, it can't be a physical thing, because there's no evidence, there's no physical parts of it.
Well, there is evidence. There's visual evidence left on, by hieroglyphs in the pyramids.
Yeah, but that's interpretation, though.
Well, it does look like look like an eggplant. It also looks like a light bulb. And maybe we'll find out someday. Who knows?
Oh, maybe you go back and have a rewatch of that episode. I think it was quite a long episode, though, over 20 minutes. So.
Oh, that's not long at all. Come on.
Well, I mean, watching the episode itself is 20 minutes, and people don't have 20 minutes to watch sometimes.
Sure.
But it's the Tesla one is the documentary that I did is the one that got you sending me a direct message about it, wasn't it? So,
I watched some of your Tesla videos, and I quite enjoyed them. So
we got to keep keeping our minds open and question our science view of things, and
certainly, because
we can be stuck inside a view like the Big Bang being real when it's not actually true. There's a lot of evidence.
The steady state is coming back in favor, which is interesting. Very, very interesting. The Big Bang was all you heard for 40 years. And now there a lot of people, a lot of theoreticians are heading back to the steady state, which I kind of like the steady state. It's comforting. I like to think that the universe will still be here eventually. Yeah?
Well, we could be wiped out in our sleep quite easily. You see these big rocks that just enter in our solar system that we just find out the last minute. It's quite scary when you think about it. And when we had the earthquake here in New Zealand, all things were going through your head because it was like a freight train, and the whole house was moving like it was on this ocean wave. It was just unbelievable. Imagine how it was. And I thought maybe there was going to be a big tidal wave, a mile high, coming towards us soon.
God. We worried about that too.
We're sort of
at the time. I still do. I have friends in New Zealand, in Christchurch, and I was worried about that. We heard about it.
Well, we're quite.
My friend Brian Hutton spoke about it on Facebook, and we're old mates, from way back. I've known him like 20 years.
Yeah.
And we were worrying about a lot of our friends, but thankfully there wasn't a tidal wave.
No.
We're your mates here because we certainly get our share of earthquakes as well. Not like you got in Christchurch.
It's settled down quite a lot this year, though. I haven't felt any big ones. But everyone's worried about the big Alpine fault line that's out where the Alps are. And if that goes, they reckon it's going to hit at least a 9. And our houses are designed to handle up to a 9, but not much beyond that. And then it could collapse on top of you. But
supposedly we were earthquake proof. Our flat that we own here out in the San Fernando Valley. I'm a valley boy, but it actually got through the last earthquake. There were some cracks and things that they had to take care of, but it didn't ride the last one. So hopefully we're good here.
Well, all the houses in Christchurch built in the 1970s onwards were pretty much earthquake-proof. And of course, they earthquake-proof the bridges here as well, highways. And, we're pretty much on a below sea level here on Christchurch, so a tidal wave could easily come right across. And
that's scary, man.
We're sort of like... I'm sort of in the middle of the South Island here. I'm sort of out on the outskirts of the main city. But all that's reclaimed swampland, of course. And what happens is when you get an earthquake, you have it can literally suck you down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not like what you call it, those holes that open up in America with the limestone. What they call those? Sinkholes.
We have faults. Yeah, sinkholes. But we have the San Andreas Fault, and it runs all along, California. since 1965, I've heard that California is going to fall into the ocean.
Yeah, it could well do, actually.
Well,
plus you got the sea levels rising.
Float free, and the rest of the United States will fall into the ocean. Who knows?
Well, they have evidence that there was a quite a high tidal wave that went a mile inland, I think, and killed all the forests.
Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara. I think it was back in the 20s or the 30s. There's photographs, and they had a full-on tidal wave. It was quite devastating. Yeah.
Mm. It's quite interesting. Sometimes you can get your house suddenly go boom, and you just get one boom, and it just rattles everything and the windows, and nothing much else happens. And you hear about security team going on about these big boom sounds, and I can relate to that being a mini quake. And of course, it doesn't.
Sure.
A lot of these don't get picked up by the stations because they're too far away, and the energy's directly underneath you where it happens. So they could. Apparently, there's thousands of mini fault lines in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah, they keep finding them.
Yeah, so
they're everywhere.
We got a minor or a major one or something. They got different names from just a mile up the road from where we live here as well, and that one causes a bit of a shake at times.
It's our living Earth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, they reckon New Zealand is actually a continent, I read online, and most of it's under the sea. 80% or something is meant to be under the sea.
Atlantis will rise again, right?
Well, I don't know if you ever listened to some of those remote viewing things on Atlantis, but they
not too much.
Well, you know how they. Well, unless they're cheating, I don't know how they're doing it. But apparently, they get a photograph of an area like a landmass or ocean location, and they put a random number from a computer on it, and lock it into an envelope into a safe, and then they just phone up the people and give them the number, and then people have it for a day to think about it, and then they just start talking about what they're seeing in their heads. And it's amazing, they get different people doing it, and they're all coming up with the same thing that they're seeing. It's well worth having a watch, the Far Sight thing. Unless they're hoaxing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm so busy with just the UFO thing.
Yeah, but
I'm always interested in this stuff.
Yeah. The thing is, the Atlantis one actually did have a UFO in it, so I thought that story might interest you. But apparently, what they said, the remote viewers, what they compiled from, is that there was Atlantis that had high technology, and it was out in the region of this area that they Google Maps had detected as a possible cavern or something there, or a dome. And they said there's an underground city, which is very much like your mum's story. And they were talking about this underground city, because I thought this story would appeal to you after hearing your story.
I'm not sure, I haven't heard that. I've heard about what I've been very interested in has been about the Fitbits and the little how they're finding out that people were wearing Fitbits, and apparently there are these little running courses.
Oh yeah, security team did the
under
thing
the Arctic.
Yeah.
No,
that one's been debunked.
Was it debunked?
Yeah, apparently they've got a Olympic running course there for members to go and run around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't
too bad.
It wasn't anything to do with Nazis or.
I like that one.
Yeah, it was debunked.
I don't like Nazis, but I like that one.
If you followed me, you probably know. If you followed me on Twitter, you probably know much of that. What he puts in episodes is debunked within 5 minutes or the next day. You know, there's a lot of people that know the stuff, and they get in touch. And
well, that's why you don't want to stand up and wave your hand and say, "Hey, look at this," because the next day, you got to give stuff time. You got to look and.
Yeah.
You got to do a little bit of research and give it time.
Well, that's right. Yeah, you got to research.
See what's happening.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why you got to sort of.
We've been disappointed a lot of times,
You got to stand back on the Pentagon stuff and see how it develops out, rather than rush in and debunk it. But you can.
I like the Pentagon stuff so far.
Yes.
The last one, the third one, was that could be anything. That could be a new missile system that they have, and that was the least impressive. But the other two were cool. I like the Tic Tac.
Well, apparently they reckon that third video is the same segment as the second video.
Oh, really?
They've looked at the timestamp. The markings on the control panel. They reckon it might have been maybe before the other second video.
So that's the.
You remember, because it's flying above the sea in the third one. So it must have gone upwards and above the cloud level. So remember how he was talking about the Tic Tac one doing that? Well, this other one is definitely a different year, but maybe that did the same thing. Maybe it comes from under the sea. We just haven't seen the full footage. And then that thing goes up above the cloud layer, and then they record that second video with the thermal. So yeah. Well, it could be after, of course, as well. It may have gone down to sea level. But, Scott Brando and a few others, Mick West is looking into it. But they haven't got all the information. We haven't got all the information yet. So it's all guesswork. And they should really give us some HD footage or something, you know. Are you still there? I think he's dropped off.